All right, I'm going to try to one-shot this. I'm going to try to explain the entire local history of exactly why all of the people in Shasta County, California right now are talking about convicted felon election tamperer Tina Peters. Where do I begin? Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. He lost. And then he did the big lie, the big fat fucking lie that was the reason for January 6th, the insurrection at the United States Capitol. We all know how that all went. People try to lie about it. They've been trying to lie about it. They try to change history. They try to tell us what we saw with our own eyes and heard with our own ears as we were all watching collectively throughout the world at the same time. Wasn't what happened. Ridiculous. And so Shasta County has people here, people like Patty and Ron Plum, Terry and Sally Raposa, people that have been part of this whole State of Jefferson movement where their whole goal is to split California so that they can turn parts of California red and make them their own states, because California itself is such a power against the whole MAGA takeover movement. That's just a fact. Fourth largest economy in the world, most liberal state, most Democrats, most liberals, most Democrat and liberal ideologies. In California, we love the LGBTQ community, we love minorities, we accept people in California for who they are, and we don't hate people in California because they're different from who we are. That is the core ideology, and whatever words someone needs to use to try to describe that or a part of it, that is what California is. Also, richest and most successful. Most influential because we have Hollywood. Locally, our registrar of voters during the 2020 election was Kathy Darling Allen. Enter Patrick Jones. At that point, he was already in politics. He had been on the Reading City Council. This guy was never someone who wanted to fight for all of the people. He's a fucking grifter. He cares about his bottom line, his profits. He hates people who aren't like him. He's an absolute fucking racist and a bigot. And he ended up gaining power here in Shasta County. Patrick Jones started a campaign, I believe, at the behest of someone connected to the Trump administration and the big lie. I feel that people like Patrick Jones and, unfortunately, even Kevin Cry were contacting people like Mike Lindell, Kari Lake, Rudy Giuliani, these types of people that are so close to Trump. And then those people realized, hey, we've got a guy here in Shasta County that can try to use our big lie ideology to take over their rural county in California, the state we hate the most, the liberal headquarters. And so they thought that they could use people like Patrick Jones to accomplish this fucking goal and this agenda. And so Kathy Darling Allen is one of, if not actually the only, I'm not quite sure, but definitely one of very, very few in Shasta County that was an elected politician who was a Democrat. That's what Kathy Darling Allen was. And even though she was the registrar of voters during all of these elections where these same people, including Patrick Jones, were duly elected, they still tried to make up the excuse that she's cheating, that she's doing something shady, that she needs to go. They all knew that she wasn't. They all absolutely knew that she wasn't. And so they attacked her. And her assistant registrar of voters at that time was Joanna Francesca. So Kathy Darling Allen had been a fucking county clerk and registrar of voters for like 20 years or something. I remember the exact numbers. This can all be Googled. I'm just trying to go off memory. And then Joanna had already been her assistant ROV and working in the elections office for like 14 plus years or something. And so clearly it makes sense that Joanna would be the next person to take over, obviously based off of an election. But then Patrick Jones and these dipshits, people like, again, Patty and Ron Plum, and Terry and Sally Raposa, and then their little dipshit minions like Richard Gallardo and Laura Hobbs came out of fucking nowhere. Seriously, I still don't know if Laura Hobbs is even a real fucking name. I really don't. I do not trust that bitch. I think she's a fucking an op. I really do. That was just sent here to accomplish a fucking political goal. So then the Trump administration and the GOP, after the big lie happened, start going after electronic voting machines. So they go after Dominion voting machines as their main target. Well, here in Shasta County, we used Dominion voting machines. And at that time, Patrick Jones was the chair of the Shasta County Board of Supervisors. Patrick Jones is the very first person in my life that I'd ever heard say the term Mesa pattern of fraud. And myself, and I think a lot of other people, didn't quite understand what that truly meant. And we didn't really even still understand what it meant until they actually got rid, with just 3 votes, of our electronic voting machines. And then the state of California passed an emergency bill to stop their bullshit and make it so that counties in California with over 1,000 registered voters could not hand count their ballots. These dipshits would love to tell you that that's because they want to be able to keep cheating. No, it's because it takes for fucking ever to hand count that many ballots. And it would have to be done by people that don't have the fucking stamina and are not motivated to actually just do the right thing, who might disregard certain things. It's just a bad idea all around. So that's why California immediately passed an emergency bill to stop that. So that stopped them in their fucking tracks. They were like, yes, we did it, we won, we got rid of the voting machines. And then California was like, fuck you. And so they then had to waste more time and money now to have all these meetings. And throughout this whole process, they had to keep finding more and more lawyers to be county counsel. They went through so many county councils until they finally landed on Joseph Larmore. Overall, they just ended up with more electronic voting machines after all of that. That is a massive fucking failure from Patrick Jones and these dipshits that cost a lot of taxpayer money that could have gone to things that actually help the majority of the taxpayers, if not all of them. You know, like building a new jail. And then it eventually comes out in the news that this woman from Colorado named Tina Peters gets caught as the registrar of voters in Mesa County, Colorado, allowing someone to use stolen identification to sneak into her elections office. So like, think about it here in Shasta County. Imagine if Kathy Darling Allen stole the identification and the access codes from one of her employees and then snuck some random person into the elections office to steal information and sneak them out. That's what Tina Peters did in Mesa County, Colorado. And then that person took that stolen illegal information and then gave it to Mike fucking Lindell. She got caught. And then she got investigated. She got charged. She had to go through all these trials. And the end of it was she was convicted by a jury of her peers for multiple counts of election interference, and several of them were felonies. The judge in Mesa County, Colorado, sentenced her to 6 months in county jail and then 9 years in state prison for literally trying to steal elections. Trump supporter. Total fucking Trump supporter. And then people from Shasta County, for some fucking reason, like Patty Plum and Laura Hobbs and Michelle Renee and Bev Gray, start having connections with Tina Peters directly. They were even before the conviction, which is even more ridiculous. I actually imagine that when she stole that information and it was transmitted and disseminated to whoever, that people here, like Patty Plum, Patrick Jones, Laura Hobbs, received some of that illegal information, if not whatever all of it was. And then these dipshits went on a campaign fully inspired and fueled by Patrick Jones to harass and intimidate Kathy Darling Allen so badly that she literally got physical heart problems and had to retire. And because of that, her many year assistant registrar of voters, Joanna Francesca, was then at that time in charge of our elections. So then our Patrick Jones-led Board of Supervisors decided to have this whole round of these interviews to replace Kathy Darling Allen as the registrar of voters, when the obvious clear choice would have been to just appoint Joanna to be the registrar of voters until the next actual election. But no, these people don't do what makes common sense. They do what they want. So then more time and more money was completely fucking wasted for all these board meetings to interview all these people. What Patrick Jones wanted was for Clint Curtis from Florida. This guy who literally wears a Donald Trump costume, lives in Florida, is an attorney, to come in and be our new registrar of voters from Florida to California. From Donald Trump's homeland to California. Make that fucking make sense. And then he shows up, like, again, literally wearing the exact same fucking costume that Trump does. And I think at this point, Patrick Jones thought that he had a shoo-in. He thought he could just control everything. And he thought that he was going to get his person, fulfill his assignment that was handed down from up above him. But Kevin Cry threw a fucking wrench in it and told the board that he wanted Tom Toller. And if they didn't choose Tom Toller, he was going to vote for Joanna. That was a weird moment. That was a really weird moment. I have never found out why Kevin Cry chose to do that. I like to think that his morality kicked into play. You know, a part of him maybe thought, this is wrong. I like to think that. But then Tom Toller couldn't physically do the job because of his own personal health issues. And so we're back to interviews and votes. Interviews of who the new ROV is going to be. And then during that time, after Kevin Cry kind of went rogue on these people, I think there was a lot of private conversations that we'll never know about, a lot of pressure and a lot of threats, because that's who these people are. I have to imagine that they threatened Kevin Cry in multiple ways. And then when they did the interviews again, they wasted all these people's time applying for this job when it was always only ever just going to be Patrick Jones' original choice, Clint Curtis. And that's who they ended up appointing as the Shasta County Clerk and Registrar of Voters over Joanna. So Clint Curtis gets in there, puts on this big old fake fucking face, fires a bunch of people. I think his first act was literally to fire Joanna. That was so fucking stupid. It was stupid for multiple reasons. One, because she was the absolute best and most qualified person at the job. But two, because how much it pissed off people here locally. So Joanna at this point obviously had the choice to be like, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to fight anymore. But because Joanna is such a fucking patriot who believes in this job and knows how to do it and wants to protect elections and serve the people of Shasta County, she announces her campaign to actually run in the election for her name to be on the ballot against Clint Curtis for the actual officially elected Shasta County Registrar of Voters. She wins. So Clint Curtis thinks that he's got this shit in the bag. But then the people, based off of all of his weird behavior, like having his shirt off in the elections office with his wife trying to move a safe, the whole ping pong balls thing, just the way he just spammed American flags everywhere as if that has anything to do with what is a non-partisan, non-political thing. Like, yes, elections are American, but if you're just screaming in someone's face, I'm an American, which is what all those flags mean, it comes off fucking weird. He tried to get cameras. He tried to have all these grandiose ideas. Oh, we're going to have phone cameras streaming on all of the ballot counting areas, and there's going to be so many cameras streaming. This is the guy whose claim to fame was saying that, oh, he knows everything about elections because he's the guy that invented how to hack elections. And then as soon as I heard him talk about technology, me being someone who actually knows about technology, I was like, this guy's full of shit. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't even understand what bandwidth is. You can't just have all these live streaming cameras when you don't have at least a multi-gigabit internet connection. When he didn't even understand that, I knew absolutely he was full of fucking shit about being an actual programmer. Another thing that's wild is how much he was saying he's a Democrat while wearing a Trump costume. I think these idiots thought that they could just be like, well, see, he's a registered Democrat. That we would then not be able to be like, okay, we'll fight this. Because then they feel like they can be like, oh, what, you're going to fight against a Democrat? They're so stupid. Just because someone says they're a Democrat or a Republican or says that they're this or that doesn't mean that their actions and behavior reflect those words. And his clearly fucking didn't. Especially with all of the connections he was making and the people he was talking to and the decisions he was making. And then after he got the fucking job, he changed his registered party to Republican. And so, Joanna wins the actual election. That was the biggest blow to all these people. All of the people under Patrick Jones, under Patty Plum, all these people that have spent so much time and money trying to literally fuck with elections and then lie to people, lost. They lost again, like they lost in 2020. I remember Patrick Jones was even so desperate that he tried to say that his own election where he won when it was under Kathy Darling Allen and Joanna, that there was also fraud in that election too. That's how fucking pathetic and desperate these people are. So then during Clint Curtis' very short tenure as the ROV, they say he's an elected official, but I think it's always been weird that just 3 dudes can choose somebody, can appoint somebody, and because 3 dudes chose him, somehow he's now an elected official. Okay, well, an election didn't happen for him when that happened, and when an election did happen for him, he fucking lost. So then Clint Curtis, being the fucking grifting snake oil salesman that he is now obviously butthurt, he's nothing more than an evicted tenant that wants to shit all over the house before he's gone, does the one thing he thinks will try to piss everyone off, but at the same time score points with the Trump administration, and tries to bring in still convicted election tamperer felon Tina Peters. And then now, the last few days have been showing what the community thinks of that. This is why I'm telling you, these people are so fucking desperate, and they cannot admit that they lost anything. Clint Curtis' censure was not even actually that big of a deal. But when you see these people, when you see how fucking angry sweet Patty Plum was during that meeting, screaming at fellow Republican Chris Kellstrom, Dan Ladd, so angry, threatening fellow Republican Chris Kellstrom, that was game over right there. That was game fucking over. And at this point, Chris Kellstrom, he's probably had to deal with so much more shit than he's even willing to talk about. These conversations he's had to have with these people. The fact that someone like Patty Plum is willing to threaten one of the people in her own party in public the way she did. Imagine the type of shit that subversive bitch said to him when no one else could hear or no one else was looking or it was in some chat. Because someone like Patty Plum, who is majorly supportive of this movement to split the state of California that has been failing for over 80 years, she failed another fucking thing, as did Patrick Jones, that is so similar to how they feel about the 2020 election. And that's why we had Clint Curtis, who wanted to bring Tina Peters to Shasta County, which is also why Patrick Jones lost in a motherfucking landslide against a dude that I endorsed. Wild, right?